HumbleMud.
Hey everyone, first off, I wanted to apologize because I just realized the other day that it was back in February that I announced I was going to be focusing pretty much solely on my backlog, yet here we are in May, and outside of a couple dedicated videos to some of the games I've beaten as part of this challenge, I've not given you guys a general update on how that's going. Now, I knew that the most important thing that I could do for myself when it came to looking at this massive list of games and deciding what to play first was to ease into it, because honestly, if I started with something like Dark Souls, I knew that I would probably burn myself out before I even really began. And so I instead opted to play a very strange game first, that really peculiar game that's just been kind of in the back of my brain. The first game I played had to be Blue Stinger for the Dreamcast. As soon as I started going back in time and discovering the Dreamcast myself through Shenmue, Skies of Arcadia, and Phantasy Star Online, Blue Stinger was one that came up time and time again when I was watching other videos or reading articles. And while I know it's not like the best game on the console or anything like that, there's just something weird about it that's so uniquely Dreamcast, from the really colorful visuals despite being a horror game apparently, to the nonsensical plot and kind of silly script with voice acting from none other than the Sonic Adventure cast.
Janine? A woman?
Blue Stinger is just one of those games where it really feels like anything goes, like you never know what's going to happen next, and you always want to push forward. I love how oftentimes the music is way more bombastic than what the situation warrants, and I just really fell in love with the janky, sometimes unintentionally hilarious nature of this game, and I genuinely had a great time just feeling like I was experiencing something that's really unlike anything that you would experience today. Something really interesting that I found out was that the Japanese version of this game has completely different camera angles. They're way more cinematic and intense, and in some ways I almost wish I had played that version first. Another really interesting thing about this Japanese version is that it's completely in English with the English voice acting as well, but I think there was some sort of disagreement between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, and so over here in the States we got this strictly behind the back camera that doesn't work nearly as well. So I think if you're open to playing this game, I would probably recommend trying the Japanese version just because the presentation is a little more interesting, but at the end of the day, both versions are really fun. It's going to put a smile on your face, that's for sure. Now we're going to go from one weird game that a lot of people considered mid and janky to another weird game that a lot of people considered mid and janky. The next game I beat was Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. Now this game has horror stories attached to it. I think it's arguably scarier than Blue Stinger is, and that's in large part due to the gamepad controls. There are a lot of motion controls that you have to do. You have to do a lot of multitasking between looking at the TV and looking at the gamepad itself, and admittedly when I first tried to play this game a while back, I could not get into it. I kept crashing and losing sight of where I was supposed to go and things like that. But this time, especially since I've been also doing the Star Fox challenge, as many of you guys know, I decided for some reason this was the one I had to play next. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I took the time with it. One thing that I like about Star Fox Zero in comparison to the original Star Fox 64 is that it actually saves your progress mid-run. And so what that allowed me to do was force myself to learn the game by doing the golden route, pretty much getting the good outcome every single time. So if I started to lose sight of the mission at hand, I would restart and force myself to do it again until I got it the way that God intended, or whatever Star Fox's God is, I guess. And by doing that, I really learned the ins and outs of this game. Now, it's been a little while since I beat it, so the footage you're seeing here is probably a little rusty compared to where I was at a couple months ago, but I genuinely had a blast with this game, and I have to admit that the Andross battle that's at the end of this game is probably my favorite Andross battle that I've experienced thus far across the Star Fox franchise. While I've got mixed opinions on this new Star Fox game that's coming out, mostly when it comes to the designs of the animals, I'm not really going to get too heavy into that here. I did notice that they were showing off a co-op mode that looks suspiciously similar to Star Fox Zero, so I'm glad that game lives on in some sense. Yes, the game is difficult. It's a lot like trying to play an instrument and sing at the same time, but if you take the time and get dedicated to it, it can be really fun. And personally, I feel like it's one of the most kinetic, intense games I've ever played when it comes to how involved your brain and your body is with it. It's hard to explain, but if you know, you know. And Star Fox Zero started a trend that you're about to see where I mostly stuck with my Wii U for a little while here. While I did take a brief detour to play GoldenEye because I felt like I needed to get some sort of prestige game under my belt here, and I have a whole dedicated video in case you want to watch that. I actually played GoldenEye XBLA, the previously unreleased version of that game made by Rare, and I also tried the Wii remake and found it much better than I expected it to be, and watched the movie for the very first time. It's a really fun video. While I spent a little time on my Xbox 360 for that, I spent a lot of time with my Wii U for a while. In fact, the game I was playing concurrently with GoldenEye was Paper Mario Color Splash. I really know how to pick them, don't I? So Paper Mario Color Splash is really interesting. It's a Paper Mario game that received a lot of hate. It came right off the heels of Paper Mario Sticker Star, which is probably the most hated Paper Mario game of all time, and instead of addressing the flaws that game had, Color Splash just kind of kept them and built off of them, and it really wasn't the answer to the Paper Mario franchise that the fan base was looking for. However, while I'd argue that it was appropriately hated back then, it's one of those games that you can appreciate a lot more now retrospectively when you're divorced from the hate. Yes, the game is filled with mostly generic toads and Shy Guys. However, Shy Guys are some of my favorite characters in the Mario franchise, and the toads are hilarious in this game because the dialogue and the writing is still top notch. Just like any other good Paper Mario game, there are lots of genuine laugh out loud moments. The music is fantastic, and I would also argue that this is probably the best looking Paper Mario game that's out there. I personally really love the way this game looks with all of the different papercraft environments, and while yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of the card battling system, there were some moments in this game, particularly the Golden Coliseum area of the game, where the card battling really opened up for a little bit there and felt really intense, and the final boss battle is actually pretty challenging too. But overall, it was those moments of just pure bliss and charm that I felt while playing this game that really kept me coming back, and I'm glad that I finally experienced it for myself. Over the course of my lifetime, I've had a really bad habit of completely ignoring games if the discourse around them is negative, and over this past half a decade or so, I've really been working on just forming my own opinions on things, and I came away from Paper Mario Color Splash and Star Fox Zero and I had a great time. So I would really highly encourage you guys to just make that opinion for yourself. Even if it is that you hate both of these games, figure that out for yourself. That's the best way to do it in my book. Now, I decided to keep it in the Wii U family one more time here, but this one did not go the way that I was expecting. Last year, I played Batman Arkham Asylum for the very first time, and it was one of my favorite games that I've played all year, probably one of my favorite games that I've played in my lifetime. And so I knew this year that I would have to play Arkham City. I really wanted to try Arkham City Armored Edition, which is the Wii U version of the game, because I've constantly seen online, even in the Batman Arkham forums at times, is how immersive and different this game is in particular because it makes really great use of the Wii U's gamepad. And while the game does make really great use of it, especially when you're doing things like hacking into systems and things like that, it does feel really immersive, and it's kind of cool seeing Batman have the exact same sort of interface on his arm, the one that you're looking at yourself. I just could not get into this. While I love all the tricks and gimmicks that are packed into this version of the game, it has such an unstable frame rate, and I'm not even someone who's that crazy about frame rates. I've dealt with a lot of old, poorly running games. I was playing the 3DO last year. I know bad frame rates. But something about this game, I think because it is a mix between a high fidelity 3D game and bad frame rates, it made me nauseous, and I've never experienced that with a video game before. So after toughing it out for about 6 hours, I decided to retire this version of the game, and I actually pivoted to the PC version of Arkham City, and obviously I'm enjoying that so much more. It is glorious, it looks fantastic, it plays super well, and there were moments in the Wii U version where I got really confused and didn't know what to do next, whereas playing it in this game, everything seems so much more intuitive, and I think that's just because the general design is so much sharper, the colors are better, I'm not fighting the frame rate the whole time, and so I've not yet finished Arkham City because I have had to kind of reset, but I'm enjoying it so much more, and I just wanted to share that detail since it is part of this whole journey that I've been on. Now, as you guys may remember, I took another detour because I was graciously sent some some codes for some legendary shmups. And while I was in the midst of making that video, I beat Crimson Clover World Explosion, Mushihime-sama, and Dodonpachi Resurrection. Now, the two other games that I covered in that video are just too hard for me and they don't allow unlimited continues, but I'm trying. However, I am happy to say that I at least rolled credits on these other three games and really enjoyed them. These were bucket list games for me that I didn't even have on my backlog, but they definitely deserve spots because I've always wanted to play these, so it was so awesome to finally get to try them. Like I said, I have a dedicated video on these games, so I'm not going to spend too much more time here, but I did want you guys to know that all three of them are on sale right now at the time of this video's release. Just saying, they're fantastic and I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I just wanted to get the word out. Alright, and thankfully for all of you Wii U haters out there, I did go to a different platform this time, although I kept it in the exact same generation. The next game I beat was Attack of the Friday Monsters, A Tokyo Tale, and this was a 3DS eShop game from like 2013, I believe, published by Level 5. Now, 3DS era Level 5 specifically has made some of my favorite games, like aesthetically. I'm so nostalgic for that period of time, whether we're talking about Yokai Watch or Fantasy Life, and now this game. The 3DS came out when I was in college, and there was just something about that platform that really like connected me back to my inner child, and I think a lot of that has to do with the art style that you saw in these Level 5 games, and also some stuff like Monster Hunter Stories. Hopefully you guys see what I'm talking about. Anyway, Friday Monsters is a hidden gem for sure. It's one of those games that has gotten a lot of like retrospective praise over the years, and for good reason. While it is heavily inspired by like kaiju and classic like tokusatsu media, the best way I could kind of prime you for an experience like this is to look at it more like a Studio Ghibli type of game. Like, it's sort of a slice of life type of game. It's about being a kid more than anything else. And there were so many moments where I just laughed. There were so many moments where I just stared at the sky, those pre-rendered hand-drawn backgrounds, and just running through this town. It's such a relaxing experience. Another thing I really liked about it is it's really short. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and while there's not like a ton of gameplay here necessarily, and it doesn't have an insane story that's super deep or anything like that, it's just such a pleasant experience overall. I don't think there's any way that you could play this game and be frustrated. It's just really relaxing. I really enjoyed collecting all the monster cards, and even though the card battles themselves are basically like rock, paper, scissors, it was still super fun. It's one of those 3DS games that's really special and locked to that hardware. One of those that everybody seems to talk about if they played it, and yeah, it's definitely special. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it's a special little game. Really enjoyed it. I'm sure you guys thought you had heard the last of the Wii U, but the funny thing about the Wii U is that it never dies, even with only 13 million sales. Because the next game I beat was Super Mario 3D World. Now, if you've noticed across the course of this channel, I have showed lots of gameplay of this game. It was sort of a comfort game that I would just play in bursts in between other more complicated games, but I started making some real progress in it, and this game is just such a source of happiness and dopamine for me, and I decided that I was going to play it all the way through. Now, you heard me correctly, I did play this on the Wii U, and hot take, I actually enjoy it more on the Wii U. The reason for this is that they increased the character speeds on the Switch version of this game, yet they didn't accommodate that by adjusting the size of the map. And so oftentimes in the Switch version of this game, I would overshoot my jumps and fall to my death. I felt like I was just breezing through the levels and it was way too easy and I wasn't really thinking through anything. Meanwhile, on the Wii U version, I took my time a little bit more. You're a little more limited because you are slower and you can't jump as far. It makes the boss battles a lot more challenging, and I also just took in the level design and the vibes of this game in such a more intuitive way, precisely because I couldn't move through it as quickly. And there are just lots of little things like that about the Wii U version. Also the fact that if you die, you lose the green stars that you collect, so you have to go back and get them, whereas in the Switch version it doesn't matter. There's just so much about the Switch version that feels inconsequential in comparison to this Wii U version. But yeah, this game is really great, and I slept on it during my college years. I thought it was just a generic Mario game, and sure, in some ways I guess it is, but there are also so many things about it that are just so well designed. Some of the particular things about this game that I really enjoy are some of the boss fights. I also really love the double cherry power-up that makes clones of your character. I absolutely loved every single level that I played that integrated that, and one standout moment of this game was this overhead like dungeon crawling experience that I had here. I wish that there was a whole full-fledged Mario game that looked like this. I had so much fun with this game, man. And I played all the way to the end, unlocked the secret character that you can get in this game, and I just had a blast from start to finish. If you skipped Mario 3D World because you wanted a more open world Mario game back then, I totally understand, but I would highly encourage you to come back and play it. It was so fun, and I really enjoyed my time with it. Now I think I'll wrap things up here for today. I think that was a good chunk of my backlog here, and I'll talk about some more games in a future video, and I promise this time I'll be a little more consistent about getting these backlog reflections or journals out to you guys. Sorry for the delay here. And I also promise I will get away from the Wii U, don't worry. After I got out of this realm of games, I got to some more prestige games, I guess you could say, so I'm excited to share those. So far, I have held strong when it comes to the no new games purchase challenge that I put on myself. Yes, seeing Pragmata release and not being able to play that really hurt me, but I've been holding out strong for you guys. So anyways, I really appreciate you all sticking with me on this journey. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to share your thoughts on these games if you played any of them. And if you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay humble.